Hi, I'm Spandita Malik and I'm talking to you from my studio in Brooklyn. I'm a visual artist from India and today I'll be talking to you about my project Nari. The word Nari comes from Sanskrit. It means a woman, a wife, a female, or an object regarded as feminine, but it can also mean sacrifice. The project started in late 2018 when I was trying to document women in self help centers in India for rape and domestic abuse survivors. When I was interviewing one of the women who was learning to embroider at the center to gain some kind of financial freedom, she told me about her friend who is not allowed to come to the center but does really wonderful embroidery. And I found this whole community of women who are not allowed to leave their houses because they're not allowed from their husbands or their fathers, or in some cases, they just do not feel comfortable stepping outside of the house. I traveled to 3 cities in India. All the 3 places have culturally famous embroideries and fabrics. I started at Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh, where the embroidery chicken curry is culturally famous and they usually do it on fabrics like malmal or voile. The next place was Jaipur in Rajasthan. The culturally famous embroidery here is usually Gotapati or Zardozi and they do it on fabrics like khadi. The last place was Chamkaur Sahib in Punjab where Fulkari, the silk thread embroidery, is historically and culturally famous. Fulkari is mostly done on fabrics like khadar or cotton based fabrics. I went to these women's houses in these communities and interviewed them about their social and economic realities. Some women talk about their domestic violence. I started photographing them in their rooms where they spend most of the time during the day. I was interested in seeing how each one of them had adorned the rooms. These private spaces are sometimes the only place they see all day. Photographing these women in the rooms that they live or feel most comfortable in, I still felt that the images that I got were inauthentic representations of them. So, I printed the portraits I took onto the fabric of the region and asked them to embroider the portrait in a way that seemed fit to them without any guidelines. By doing this, I wanted to give them the power and control over their own representation and portrait. Some of them decided to hide their face and embroider their face. Some of them decided to embellish the walls of their portraits. These artistic collaborations subvert the idea of the artist as the main producer by giving each woman her own creative entity within her own creative medium. I believe that women's work in art throughout history has not been considered fine art. In the West, handicrafts like quilting, embroidery, and needlework were not considered artistically equivalent to the mediums of painting or sculpture. And I understand that even now, this is the case in India. As a part of the project, when I was living with these women in their communities, I also taught their children photography on disposable cameras that I carried with me to the villages. The children were mostly from ages 7 to 13.
हेलो कौन बोल रहा है पप्पू वापस फोन हेलो
During this project, I had the privilege to be the bearer of these stories, to hear the silences, to have the responsibility to retell and share these stories. But also, this whole project kind of built a community where we were able to create safe spaces. I feel like embroidery is something that is inherited. I learned it from my mother and she learned it from my grandmother. And I feel like embroidery has become this thing that has been inherited by generations of women and has been passed along like a legacy of our own language to break the oppressor. When these women embroider their own portraits, they not only take control over the representation of their own image, but they also embed into their images their own silent stories. When I collaborate with these women, we create a connection through our art. But when I listen to them through our inherited language of embroidery, that's when I understand the true meaning of Nari. Thank you, everyone.